Okay, so we're going to be taking notes on Genesis chapter 4. So these are like the notes that I got. Chapter 1. So I found that interesting. And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain and said, I have gotten a man from Yah. So I kind of found this interesting because I don't know if you guys heard the story that Eve and the serpent made a baby and that's Cain. So yeah, that kind of debunks it. So Adam and Eve were together and made Cain. So we know that's legit since verse 1 said that. Verse 2, and she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain was a tiller of the ground. So verse 4 through 7, I found interesting because you already know this is when Abel and Cain gave their offerings to the Lord. So I underlined sin, and it means to offense or to miss the mark. So in summary, because we know that Yah had accepted Abel and Cain, verse 4 through 7 basically explains that. And my summary I got: do well to be accepted, doesn't do well, which is sin. You miss the mark and offend someone, but don't let it overtake you, or it will rule over you. So that's what I got in summary for 4 through 7. And another thing that kind of like stood out to me is Yah was still able to talk with man whenever, so they were able to communicate to Yah as they pleased. So verse 8 through 10 I found interesting because we know in verse 8 Cain killed Abel. In verse 9 Yah had questioned Cain about Abel, but verse 10 basically I underline, thy brother's blood crieth up to unto me from the ground. So I kind of found this interesting because he already knew what Cain had done to his brother, because it says thy brother blood crieth unto me. So now I see, okay, blood is something very important. I don't know what, but I can see blood crieth unto me. So that gets me thinking, okay, what does that mean? Blood crieth unto me from the ground. So we know blood is very important. I don't know what yet, but it is. So verse 11, and now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. I underlined, art thou cursed from the earth, opened her mouth to receive, and blood. So the question I asked myself was, Cain is cursed from the earth. So we know in Genesis 3 that Yah cursed the earth, not Adam. And another question I asked myself was, so Cain was exiled from the earth. Was Cain exiled from the earth? And a little summary that I got basically is what I noticed is Cain, he had the desire to be accepted but was not, and removed his brother from the earth. So the Lord made him a reject from all, and he was no longer welcome to the earth. So just as his brother life was taken from the earth, Yah cursed him from the earth, so now he will no longer be accepted on the earth, just as his brother is not on the earth. That's the summary that I got. So verse 12, when thou tilted the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shall thou be in the earth. So I underline fugitive and vagabond. So what I got for fugitive is to quiver, strong H5128 if you guys want to look that up. I got to quiver, totter, shake, waver, unsteady, And then for vagabond, strong H5110, I got to shake, to waver, to wander, move to and fro, to grieve, to node, and that's basically is to waver. Um, and that means to show grief. Basically, to show grief. That's what that means. So, fugitive and vagabond is not like how most people kind of read it, as if like, oh, they're wandering and whatever. But over here, it's basically saying to quiver, to waver, to be unsteady. And then that's for fugitive. And like I said, for vagabond, is saying to what's it called, shake, to waver, to wander, but mainly is to know, and that is to waver, which means to show grief. So he's scared, basically. So another thing that kind of stood out in verse 12 was like Cain, he was like a farmer, but now he would no longer be able to work the ground since he was rejected. So just as like Abel was like the tiller of like his animal, and then Cain, he, like I said, was a farmer, so he's rejected from the ground. So the earth would no longer produce for him anymore. I don't know how to pronounce this. The Peshitta translation says to shaken and tremble, you will be on the earth. So they don't use fugitive and vagabond. They use shaken and tremble, you will be on the earth. If you look it up, that's basically what they use. So another thing that stood out to me, just as he was downcast, when Yod rejected his offering, he will be node with no harvest. So which means he'll be in grief with no harvest, just as he was sad when he was rejected, so he will continue to be grieved. So verse 13, and Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. So I underline punishment and bear, and punishment H5771. I got fault, inquity, do amiss, sin basically, or crime. They use the word crime for this one. And bear means to carry, take, or forgive. Verse 14, behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. So I underline, and from thy face shall I be hid. Everyone that findeth me shall slay me. So no longer be in the presence of Yah. Won't be able to hear Yah's presence or feel Yah's presence. And I questioned myself and I asked, okay, is there more people? Because he said, everyone that findeth me shall slay me. So is there more people on the earth? Like, who else is on the earth? So that was 14. Verse 15, and Yah said unto him, therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken unto him sevenfold. And Yah set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. I underline slayeth vengeance, set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him shall kill him. So slayeth, basically H2026, means to murder, to smite with a deadly intent. and that is murder. Vengeance, H5358. To grudge, avenge, or punish. So least any finding him shall kill him. So that mark was basically set on him. So if anybody find him, they won't kill him. Verse 16, and Cain went out from the presence of Yah and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. I underlined the whole thing. But I did look up Nod 5113 or Node, and it means wandering. So what I found interesting in verse 16, Cain went to a land on the east of Eden. That's where it says he went to a land on the east of Eden. And I also asked the question, why head that direction? Why head towards the east? On the east of Eden. Why head that way? So Genesis 3 verse 24, it kind of remind me, that's where Yah placed the cherubim and a flaming sword to keep the way of the tree of life. So he headed on the east of Eden, where the cherubim and the flaming sword was basically at. That was basically the entrance of the Garden of Eden. So like I said, why that way? So, and then what I also did find out, like, he wandered. Nod is not a land, because like I said, Nod means to wander. So he basically wandered towards the east of Eden. He didn't go to a land or a city that was already there. He wandered towards the east of Eden. That's what I kind of got from verse 16. Verse 17, and Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch, and he built a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. So verse 17, I asked my question. So he was already married, he had a woman with him, and who? So those were the questions that I asked in verse 17. Verse 23, and Lamech said unto his wife Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. Verse 23 kind of showed his wickedness, because he wounded and he hurt, and then so he murdered them. He didn't kill, he basically murdered them. He said, for I have slain, but he murdered them because he had the intent to kill. Verse 25. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For Yah said, she hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. Verse 26. And to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enosh. Then began man to call upon the name of Yah. So I underline men, and it was H2490. Underline men. It means to profane oneself. So his name was known in the beginning. I know here, like, some people will say, oh, this is when man began to pray, like pray, but it says man began to call upon the name of Yah. So his name was known in the beginning, so they knew his name. So men wasn't men, but like I said, strong H2490. The word they used was koala. Kahala, Halal, to profane oneself. So it wasn't men, but to profane oneself. So I basically underlined that last sentence of verse 26 because that's an interesting sentence. But that is all for chapter 4 of Genesis.